So, today we're going to talk a little bit about punitive damages, something we've discussed a little bit, but we'll focus on today. So, punitive damages are awards that are given in tort cases that are meant to punish people who have done something that we want to discourage. So, bad acts should be punished. We have the criminal law that does that explicitly. Tort law is about compensating victims, and as we've talked about it's about creating proper incentives to take precaution. Punitive damages is somewhere in between those two. It's a way the courts can say, we want to compensate a victim who has been harmed, but we also want to explicitly do something punitive, punish someone who's done something bad, because it wasn't just your standard negligence that they were careless and didn't use the precaution they want. They were worse than that. And typically that takes the form of reckless behavior. So negligence means you didn't meet a standard of care. You didn't use as much precaution as you should have in those circumstances. Reckless behavior means you knew of a risk and you went ahead anyway. So when people know that something bad could happen based on their actions, but they decide to do those actions anyway, that may constitute reckless behavior. And that, in most states, is the base level of mental state that you need to get punitive damages. It's what the plaintiff needs to show the defendant was doing. Now, it doesn't actually have to be just reckless. It could be knowing behavior. So you know you're causing harm. You may even do it intentionally. You're trying to cause harm. Those things would certainly meet the standards for punitive damages. In most states, it needs to be at least reckless. So you could think of it as negligent, reckless, knowing, intentional, right? So anything reckless above may be suitable for punitive damages. And if we look at the factors that most states use when looking at punitive damages, they're looking at things like, what did the defendant know about the risks of harm involved in the sort of activities they were doing? Did they do something to try to conceal what they were doing? Did they make a lot of money off of what they were doing? So we're kind of looking at things like, how long has this sort of risky behavior been going on? Was it driven by a profit motive? That's especially important if we're talking about a corporate defendant, a big company. So the famous McDonald's case with hot coffee, McDonald's was making extra money by selling extra hot coffee. And so that's a big factor that went into that court case, the jury determination of punitive damages. They were saying McDonald's knew that it was risky to serve extra hot coffee. They decided to do it anyway because based on taste testing results, they expected to sell a lot more coffee because they were selling it extra hot. Now that's the sort of thing a jury says, okay, you knew there was risk, you proceeded anyway, so it meets that reckless standard. You were making a bunch of extra money off of this extra hot coffee because you were selling more of it. That's the sort of thing we may want to use punitive damages for, to make people factor in that their behavior can cause a lot of harm.